Ms. Ranjani is no outsider to the Academy. She is the Associate Academic Director of the Academy of Arbitration Avenues International. We welcome you, ma'am.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Bhargavi, for your wonderful introduction. Now I thank Justice E. Padmanabhan sir and Dr. Paul for giving me such a wonderful opportunity to make this presentation on seat of arbitration. Now the topic which I'm going to deal with is seat of arbitration, bird's eye view. Why bird's eye view? Reason being, see, the seat of arbitration is a crucial aspect of arbitration, and vast area has to be covered as far as seat in arbitration is concerned. Due to the specific limited time available to me, I thought I will discuss on certain aspects of seat of arbitration specifically. Now, today, I am going to focus on the concept of seat of arbitration and its impact on Indian Arbitration Act 1996 and its consequence if it is not mentioned in the arbitration clause. These are the aspects which I am going to deal with in present webinar. Now, basically, just to say in one line, what seat of arbitration is the place where the arbitration can be conducted. So C determines the place of arbitration. Once a place of arbitration is selected by the parties to the arbitration, to the contract, then the law of arbitration of that particular place will be applicable to the dispute which is between the parties, which is generally being used to determine seat of arbitration is one is lex arbitri. Lex arbitri means law of arbitration, and the second one is lex loci arbitri. Lex loci arbitri means law of the place of arbitration. Therefore, when a seat of arbitration is determined by the parties, automatically the place where the arbitration has to be conducted will be clear, and the arbitration of that particular place will only apply till the end of the arbitration proceedings. This is the meaning of seat of arbitration. Now let us go to the PowerPoint presentation. Just 1 second, I'll just start with a slide. So before going into the main concept of seat of arbitration, I would like to discuss the basic concept of arbitration. We all know that arbitration is a well-recognized form of alternative dispute mechanism all over the world. And without intervention of court, arbitration is being conducted, and only the challenge procedure goes before the court. Now, present situation, we are in globalization world, and international arbitration plays a vital role in present scenario. This when parties from different countries enter into contract, if any dispute arises, it is generally being solved through international arbitration. This is conducted all over the world against very different legal and cultural backgrounds. The purpose of opting for international arbitration is it can provide a quick, practical, and economic settlement of cross-border disputes for parties from two different countries. Therefore, international arbitration plays a vital role all over the world. Generally, arbitration is a system of formal dispute resolution with the help of one or more, generally odd, impartial people who are the arbitrators for a final and binding decision which has a sanctity of law. So, when arbitration conducted and award is passed, it gets its finality, and it is also recognized by law. However, like although till the passing of the award, arbitrator plays a major role. The award can be challenged before the court, and therefore arbitration proceedings are bound by the supervisory jurisdiction of the courts, expressly or impliedly agreed upon by the parties as part of the arbitration clause. So, although the arbitration proceedings are bound by supervisory jurisdiction of the courts, the parties have option to select. They have a choice to agree upon the court which will govern the arbitration. So that is one of the important criteria which is available in arbitration proceedings. And one general information which I would like to share is, generally arbitration is an adjudication process excluding the involvement of court. This arbitration process gets sanctity from Indian Contracts Act. As far as Indian law is concerned, there is a specific provision in Contracts Act, Section 28 of the Contracts Act, which clearly states that any contract barring legal proceedings is completely void. Any contract restraining legal proceeding is void. But there is an exception clause to the Section 28 of the Contracts Act, which clearly says if the parties enter into a contract for adjudicating their disputes through arbitration, then it is not illegal and it is valid in eye of law. Therefore, the entire arbitration, which is one of the important alternative dispute mechanism, has got the sanctity of law and it is completely valid in eye of law. Now, next slide. Arbitration is done without the intervention of the court. It is subject to the supervisory jurisdiction of the court. Now, the parties to the arbitration have a choice to select the court where arbitration can be conducted. So now this takes us to the concept of party autonomy. That is in this slide. Party autonomy is a cornerstone for arbitration, which means the parties to the arbitration can agree upon any aspect involving arbitration. They are free to choose any aspect involving arbitration, although there are certain limitations. Now, let us see what are the aspects which the parties can choose. First is all are certain disputes that can be referred to arbitration. So when they enter into a contract, they can specifically mention whether all the disputes involving that contract can be referred to arbitration or only certain disputes can be referred to arbitration. This aspect the parties are free to choose. Next is constitution of the arbitral tribunal. Whether they want ad hoc arbitration or they want it to be governed by, in fact, third deals with that. Here, constitution of arbitral tribunal is whether they want to do it with sole arbitrator or a panel of arbitrators. Discretion on the part is on the parties to decide. Third is ad hoc or institution arbitration, whether they want to directly select the arbitrators or through institution they want to do, even that the parties can select. Now, the fourth and fifth aspects are the laws applicable to dispute in arbitration and laws applicable in arbitration. These are the two aspects which I'm going to now detailedly discuss about. Parties to an arbitration agreement can select laws applicable to dispute in arbitration, means the laws applicable to the contract itself. And laws applicable in arbitration means laws applicable to the proceedings in arbitration. These two aspects the parties can have in the arbitration agreement through the arbitration clause. Now, next slide. Next is now, once the parties decide to choose the applicable law for arbitration, that is divided into two. As I said, laws applicable to dispute in arbitration, laws applicable in arbitration. Now, laws applicable to dispute in arbitration is called substantive laws. And laws applicable in arbitration is called procedural law. So there are two types of laws: substantive laws and procedural laws, which is applicable to arbitration as a whole. Now, this procedural law is again subdivided. It is very crucial, which covers now the present topic. Procedural law is divided into two. One is curel law, that is the internal procedure governing the arbitration, like how the arbitration has to be conducted, appointment of arbitrators, how many members should be there, and what is the procedure to be followed in arbitration. Internal procedure, everything is governed by procedural laws, and that is in one term called curel law. Next is second aspect is the important jurial seat of arbitration. That is the place of arbitration and law of arbitration, which has to be applied to the present dispute in hand. So these are the three aspects of law which has to be specifically selected by the parties at the time of entering into arbitration agreement. Now here, as far as judicial seat of arbitration is concerned, that not only once the party select the seat, that not only covers the place of arbitration, also the courts of that particular place where the arbitration is conducted. So that specifically means the supervisory jurisdiction of the court. Now we will let us see one by one in detail. Next slide. Next slide is about substantive law. The parties entering into a contract has a right to select the substantive law which would be applicable if any dispute arises. Generally, the substantive law concept will come in international commercial arbitrations. We all know international commercial arbitrations, two parties from two different countries will enter into an agreement. So what will happen is, when they enter into an agreement, there is a possibility of conflict of laws. So in that case, parties at the time of entering into arbitration agreement itself has to select the governing law of which place would be applicable if any dispute arises. So this situation may not arise in domestic arbitration, because law of the land, domestic arbitration will be between the parties of the same country, so law of the land will automatically apply. But substantive law is, as far as substantive law is taken into consideration, in international perspective, when two different parties from two different countries are involved, it's always better to select which law will be applicable. For I would like to give an instance, like Indian company and a Korean company enters into a contract for construction of a building complex in India. And they specifically mention substantive law of India, the arbitration clause, they mention substantive law of relating to contract in India will be applicable. So if that is mentioned, in the future when dispute arises, contract law of India will be applicable. And it is also advisable, when the parties relating to international commercial arbitration enter into a contract, it is always advisable to select the substantive law of that particular place where the contract is executed. So in this instance, if you can clearly see, if suppose any breach of contract, or if that construction of building complex is not being constructed within the time limit stipulated, then the contract that would amount to breach of contract. And Contract Act in India has specific clauses which deals with compensation and frustration of contract and so on. So automatically, when dispute arises, the arbitrator, it would be convenient for the arbitrator to apply the law in India, since the contract was executed in India. So at the time of selecting the substantive law, the parties to the arbitration has to be very careful in selecting the law, so that it would not in the future lead to litigation as to interpretation. This is as far as substantive law. So to put it in a nutshell, the law governing the subject and merits of the dispute is called substantive law. It is also described as applicable law or governing law. In most jurisdictions, parties are free to choose the law that will apply, especially the international commercial arbitrations. Now, the scope of substantive law will generally relate to interpretation, performance of contract. Like interpretation means like interpretation of any terms of the contract. Thirdly, consequence of breach and assessment of damage. If suppose contract terms are not complied as per the clause in that. Ways of distinguishing obligations, prescriptions, whether limitations will apply or what are the obligations mentioned in the contract. Consequence of nullity of contract. If suppose it is frustrated and so on, in that particular scenario, the substantive law will come into picture. Basically, the law governing the merits of the dispute. So when a dispute arises, there will surely the dispute will arise mainly because the contract terms are not complied. So that will constitute the merits of the dispute, and in that case, substantive law, if it is selected, it can directly be applied by the arbitrator without any interpretation of without any discussion further on the substantive law. Next branch is procedural law. That is divided into two, as I said in the earlier slide, curral law and seat of arbitration. This curral law is nothing but the procedural law to be applied to the conduct of arbitration. So now, when the arbitration, in dispute, after the dispute arises, when the arbitration has to be started, then the procedure to be followed for conduct of the arbitration can be selected by the parties. There are lots of many rules like UNCITRAL model rules, UNCITRAL arbitration rules, and even Indian Arbitration Act for a reason if it's selected. Many procedural rules are available. So parties at the time of entering into a contract, when they frame their arbitration clause, it is advisable to specifically select the rules which will be applicable. This again, it will apply in the contract, this will apply in the context of international commercial arbitration perspective. So when parties from two different countries enter into a contract, what will happen is it is advisable to select a specific procedure to be applicable as it varies from country to country. So it is party autonomy. Also, one of the aspect of party autonomy is the parties can choose the procedure that can be applied for their arbitration. For here, what I have done is, for instance, if a company from India and a company from South Korea has selected Indian Arbitration Act 1996 as their curral law governing arbitration, then the procedures stipulated under the Indian Arbitration Act would bind their arbitration proceedings. Now, I just thought to show, for instance, Indian Arbitration Act, Section 10 deals with composition of arbitration tribunal. So, in fact, in Indian Arbitration Act, Part 1, if you see, there are two aspects. One, there's a first aspect, it deals with the complete procedure for conducting arbitration. And the second aspect deals with the supervisory jurisdiction of the courts, for challenge, for getting interim orders, how the court can be approached. The entire aspect is covered under Indian Arbitration Act 1996. For the sake of convenience, I have selected this. Even we can have UNCITRAL model rules, model law, or UNCITRAL arbitration rules, or IC rules. Anything can be selected. So, once a party select, the provision provided under particular act will be applicable for arbitration. If we select Indian Arbitration Act, then the composition of tribunal, how it has to be derived, and how the arbitration, within what time frame arbitration has to be commenced, and regarding pleadings, hearings, and written proceedings, everything will the provisions provided under the Indian Arbitration Act will be applicable. Next. So the procedural law, now the first the parties to the contract have selected a substantive law. Then the procedural law has been selected. Then comes the very important concept, today's topic, jural seat of arbitration. That is the very important aspect of the arbitration, which the parties should compulsorily select at the time of entering into a arbitration agreement. Mostly, like when two parties from two different countries enter into a contract, they have to first decide which would be the seat of arbitration, in which place arbitration would be conducted. That is very important to decide. If they fail to do that, then subsequently it will lead to lots of litigations, which would curtail the purpose of arbitration itself. So now how the parties can do that? So like parties once select, they mention this one, so it's one particular place as the seat of arbitration. That particular place, in that particular place, arbitration has to be once a place is selected, two things will flow. The law of arbitration of that particular place only will apply till the end of arbitration. Once a seat is selected by the parties, they cannot at any point of time after dispute arises change the seat of arbitration. The law of arbitration of that particular place will automatically flow. Second is very important aspect, the court and seat of arbitration. That is the courts which are available and the provision relating to courts of that particular seat will have supervisory jurisdiction over the arbitration. No other courts can be approached. Only the courts of that particular seat or place can be approached for any orders by the parties to the arbitration. So this is the important criteria of seat of arbitration. There is one more aspect which I would like to discuss. See, once the seat of arbitration is decided, then the court of the particular jurisdiction, which will have the exclusive jurisdiction to cover the arbitration proceedings. So that means only that particular court, any issues can be filed only before that particular court, and that will constitute exclusive jurisdiction, and no other court can have jurisdiction over the issue. Like in India, if we see, if apart from arbitration, if any case has to be filed, Section 20 of the Civil Procedure Code is generally applicable. Section 20 says, like case, if any dispute arises, case has to be filed against the respondent or defendant in the place where he resides or where he carries out business or where part or the full cause of action arises. These are the three jurisdictions available if a party has to approach the court. And there is another provision, Section 16 of Civil Procedure Code, which says the case can be filed where immovable property is situated. But the provisions of CPC will not be applicable to arbitration. Section 19 of Arbitration Act is very clear. And although there are certain judgments which say that Civil Procedure Code will be applicable, but as far as considering the exclusive jurisdiction of the courts, there are precedents, clear precedents which states that like when a seat is selected, let it be domestic arbitration or let it be International Court of Arbitration, when a seat is specifically selected and it is mentioned in arbitration, arbitration clause of the arbitration agreement, that particular place alone will have exclusive jurisdiction over the arbitration proceedings. No other court can interfere. Even in a domestic arbitration scenario, if two places have jurisdiction, like due to cause of action or where the parties decide, if the parties to the arbitration have selected a place where no cause of action has arisen and where it's completely a different place has been selected, even then this exclusive jurisdiction clause will be applied and that particular court will have jurisdiction to hear the case and no other courts will have jurisdiction even in domestic arbitration. International commercial arbitration, it is very clear, only that place where the parties have selected the seat to be will have jurisdiction to hear the case. Now, so again, to clarify, once a seat is selected by the party, the seat means a place. Place is selected by the party. The law of arbitration of that place, this is very important. Law of arbitration of the place will prevail, and consequences, once a law of arbitration of the place prevails, consequences, the courts courts coming within the jurisdiction of that particular place will have supervisory and supportive jurisdiction over the arbitration proceedings of that particular arbitration proceedings. Now, I just thought I'll give some illustration. Again, going back to Arbitration Act, Indian Arbitration Act 1996. Suppose two parties from two different countries have selected seat of arbitration as Indian Arbitration Act 1996. In that case, the concerned court in India will exercise supportive and supervisory jurisdiction over the arbitration through the following provisions of Indian Arbitration Act 1996. Suppose during the pendency or after any dispute arises, the parties to the contract, if the seat is in India, they can file Section 9 petition. Any interim measures, like even during pendency, if any property has to be secured or anything has to be protected, interim measures or interim injunction can be granted by Section 9. Next, Section 27. They can apply to court for assistance in taking evidence. Section 34, setting aside of the arbitral award. Section 37 is appeal against the order passed by the single judge. In those scenarios, like if suppose Indian Arbitration Act is selected as a seat, automatically these provisions of the Indian Arbitration Act will apply. Next is, there's an interesting passage I thought I will quote for even more better understanding of seat and seat of arbitration from the book book on international arbitration by Redfern and Hunter. I would like to read out the paragraph. This will give more clarity on the seat of arbitration. Here what happens is, what the parties have done is to choose a place of arbitration in a particular country. Choose a place of arbitration in a particular country. That choice brings with it submission to the law of that country. As I said, once you select a place, automatically that law of that country will apply. That includes any mandatory provisions of its law on arbitration. Next, to say that the parties have chosen that particular law to govern the arbitration is like the instance has been given. See, you will have to, before choosing the seat, you will have to completely analyze that law in that seat and then decide whether you will have to mention that in arbitration clause or not. Reason being, instance here is like saying an English woman who takes her car to France has chosen French traffic law, which will oblige her to drive on the right-hand side of the road to give priority to vehicles approaching from the right, and generally to obey traffic laws to which she may not be accustomed. In England, she's an English woman. In England, generally left-hand side drive would be that. So, when she comes to France, then she'll have to if right-hand drive, then she has to go with right-hand drive only, even if she is not accustomed. But it would be an old use of language to say this notional motorist has opted for French traffic law. What she has done is to choose to go to France. The applicability of French law then follows automatically. It is not a matter of choice. So what it means is party autonomy, choice to select a seat is only available till the time you select the seat. You can, at the time of entering into an agreement, you can select the seat and mention it. Once that is done, and subsequently in the future any dispute arises and you go for arbitration, And if you find some difficulty in implementing, or if you difficulty in the laws pertaining to seat, you cannot change it, and it is not a matter of choice, and you will have to go with it till the end of the arbitration proceedings. This is what the interpretation illustration given in that particular book. Next, judgment, it's a foreign judgment. Again, just to understand the concept of seed, this Excel Insurance Limited versus Owens Corning. In this case, what happened? An American party. So, an American party entered into a contract with a British party. So, they specifically stated the substantive law of the contract was New York. So, substantive law of America, New York is American state. So, New York state will apply. But the agreement to arbitrate was subject to the English Arbitration Act 1996. That means agreement to arbitrate. So seat is in England. So English Arbitration Act will apply. What happens is that insured party, this American party, he files an interim application before Delaware court, which is in America, asking for indemnification of certain losses which were insured. Then, aggrieved by that, the insured B, this is the British party, he files a petition in London asking interim injunction for stopping the proceeding Delaware, since Delaware has no jurisdiction to hear that petition. So English court held that since the parties have chosen to seek refuge under English law of arbitration, provision of English Arbitration Act would automatically apply, and it says that although the substantive law is in America, since the place of arbitration the parties have selected to be England, only the provisions of English Arbitration Act will apply, and only the courts in England will have jurisdiction. Courts in London will have jurisdiction to decide the issue. So this is the simple judgment to explain the seat of arbitration. Next slide. Next is now difference between seat and venue. We would have heard this term, this using of term seat and venue in many places, and there are, which I'm going to later part discuss. Whether venue can be used instead of seat, or seat can be used instead of venue, which term has to be used, and so on. There are lots of confusions going on. See, my opinion is like party autonomy again. Parties have like choice. They are free to select anything in their arbitration clause. So at the time when the arbitration agreement is entered, they have to do the entire process. They have to think till suppose if the dispute arises, and what will happen till the end of the arbitration proceedings, and then decide the issue. So the term seat, if it is clearly used in the arbitration clause, it would solve most of the disputes, and it will not lead to litigation. Now we'll see the difference between seat and venue. Seat of arbitration, once chosen, will remain the same till the completion of the arbitration proceeding. As I said earlier, once you choose a seat, till the end of the arbitration proceedings, it will go on. It cannot be stopped in the middle. That is, it cannot be changed in the middle. Venue, if you see, it is just venue for hearings and meetings to be conducted by the arbitrator. That can be changed according to the convenience of the parties and arbitrators. It can be changed from one place to place or country to country and anything, but without affecting the underlying connection to the seat. Therefore, seat will be the same till the end. Venue can be changed from time to time, depending upon the particular, depending upon the situation at the particular point of time. Here there is one judgment on this point also. This is PT Garuda versus Virgin Air, reported in 2002, 1 SLR 401. In this case, what happened is, in the contract stated that arbitration shall be held in Jakarta, Indonesia, and Jakarta was a place of arbitration. So, seat of arbitration is, no doubt, it's clear it's Jakarta. There is not even confusion. It's clearly mentioned, shall be held in Jakarta, Indonesia, and place of arbitration. Although the term seat is not used. Place of arbitration is Jakarta. It has been clearly mentioned. However, now what happens is like when the hearing was going on, few hearings were held in Singapore. So what Garuda, this PT Garuda, who's a claimant, argued that seat has been changed to Singapore by subsequent agreement of the parties, as the hearing was held in Singapore, and institution, the Singapore representative of ICICI had provided, institution which was supporting the arbitration had provided administrative and legal support for the case. Therefore, the claimant, this PT Garuda, stated that seat has changed in the middle with the consent of both the parties. Therefore, seat would be Singapore. But the Singapore court, the Court of Appeal in Singapore, rejected his contention and held that procedural law applicable to a case by reference to the choice of seat is unaffected by a decision by holding hearings in another place, even with the consent of parties. This is as far as the seat and venue is concerned. Next. So now, I hope I would have given a clear picture about what would constitute seat of arbitration. Now, at the time of selecting a seat, what factors, at least the basic minimal factors to be considered while selecting the seat? First one is the seat should be a signatory to New York Convention, so its award can be enforced in other signatory states. So, at the time of selecting a seat, it is a preliminary thing to see whether the seat is a signatory of New York Convention, so that enforceability would be very easy after award is passed. Second, the seat should be in a jurisdiction that has a well-developed body of arbitration law. So we will have to select a seat where the arbitration law is well recognized and lots of informations and institutions relating to arbitration law is available. Next is parties should strive to select an arbitration-friendly jurisdiction for the seat. Like there are many arbitration-friendly jurisdictions, like London, Singapore, and other places where importance is given to arbitration-friendly jurisdiction for the seat. So if that that countries are selected, it would be easy to conduct the arbitration proceedings without frequent litigations. Court's nature of dispute should also be guiding the choice of seat to ease mechanisms of availing interim reliefs. Nature of dispute should also be guiding a choice of seat. So, see what is what is the contract involved, what is the dispute involved. So everything can be analyzed. Then the seat can be selected for the purpose of getting interim orders and so on. Like where the property is situated, those aspects can be considered, and the seat can be selected. Finally, non-legal factors such as convenience of parties can also be considered, where the parties are residing, or even the lawyers within the court. Everything non-legal factors, like who will handle the case, everything can be taken into consideration before selecting the seat. Next part which I'm going to deal with is like analyzing Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996 seat perspective. Now the first part, so I would like to conclude by stating that the parties, whether it is like if it is international commercial arbitration, parties to a contract, so at the time of entering into arbitration clause, should see that they clearly, without any ambiguity, select three laws. One is substantive law, second is procedural law, third is the seat of arbitration. So they will have to clearly select all the three aspects, and they have complete autonomy. They are free to select the three laws, and they should grab that opportunity to select those laws and incorporate that in arbitration clause in order to avoid future litigations. So this is what the concept of seat and the interrelated concepts which I discussed. Now let us go to the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996 in seat perspective form. Now this as far as this Arbitration and Conciliation Act is concerned, there are 4 parts. Part 1, 2 and 4 deals with arbitration and all arbitration related issues. Part 3 deals with conciliation. Now, in seat perspective, we will have to take part 1 of the Arbitration Act alone into consideration. Part 2 deals with enforcement of awards. That is not like discussion in the present topic. So I will restrict to part 1 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act. Now, like earlier, when procedural law and like seat, I was mainly for like understanding. It will be easy for us to understand. I again selected there also Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996 as procedural law and as the seat of arbitration. Now, here this part 1, there are 2 subparts in that. Part 1 has 2 parts. One is provisions relating to the procedures governing the internal arbitration, that is how the arbitration has to be conducted. Then the external affairs in arbitration. In external affairs is courts, which court will have jurisdiction to courts under which provisions court have to be approached. So both the procedural law and the seat of arbitration aspects all are covered under part 1 of the Indian Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996. Now, that is one section, interesting section, section 2, clause 2 of the Arbitration Act, which clearly says part 1 apply to the arbitration which is conducted in India alone. So it means two countries in seat perspective. If we see, if two different countries, one Indian country and suppose Korean party from a Korean country enter into a contract with seat of arbitration as India, and in that case alone, part 1 of the Indian Arbitration Act will be applicable. So seat should be in India. Only in that case, Indian Arbitration Act will be applicable. Next is section 20. I would like to just quickly go through 2 important sections governing seat of arbitration in 1996 Act. Section 20. Section 20 says the parties are free to agree on the place of arbitration. See, like although the term seat is used in various judgments, both domestic and international perspective, Act does not have the term seat even after amendments till 2019 in section 20. Only the term uses place of arbitration. So first part, section 20 says parties can select their seat or place of arbitration. Second clause says, suppose if the parties fail to select, the place of arbitration shall be determined by the arbitral tribunal having regard to the circumstances of the case. Then arbitration tribunal at the time when the arbitration proceedings starts, convenience of the parties can select the seat. One point which I would like to mention here is our Arbitration Act is governed by UNCITRAL model laws, and whatever provisions in UNCITRAL model laws is almost verbatim has been taken into consideration in 1996 Act. So same provisions. The same provision is available under Article 20 of the UNCITRAL model law. Now, clause 2 says, if suppose parties are not selecting a place of arbitration, seat has not been selected, and the arbitral tribunal it can be determined by the arbitral tribunal. So 1 and 2 talks about the place of arbitration. Third talks about the venue of arbitration. Notwithstanding section 1 and 2, the arbitral tribunal may, unless otherwise agreed by the parties, meet at any place it considers appropriate for consultation among its members, for hearing witnesses, experts or the parties, or for inspection of documents, goods or other property. So third is it's impliedly talks about the venue. So this is section 20 of the Act, which talks about the seat of arbitration and the venue of arbitration. Next is section 31. Now the section 31, this clause 4 alone is very important because it says arbitral award shall state the date and place of arbitration as determined in accordance with section 20, and award shall be deemed to have been made at that place. So the arbitral tribunal, when it's signing the award, should specifically mention the place of arbitration and the date, because that would automatically mean the seat of arbitration. For that particular purpose, that award has to specifically mention the date and the place of arbitration. Next step. Okay, now again, going back to part 1 of the Constitution, I mean, part 1 of the 1996 Act, as I said, only when general principle prevailing all over the world is only when seat of arbitration is in a particular country, the law of arbitration of that particular country will apply. Now, if suppose seat of arbitration is in India, only then part 1, all the provisions, section 9 or section 34 or any provision of the part 1 of the Arbitration Act will apply. This is the general provision. And section 2, clause 2, before 2015 amendment, even the Indian Arbitration Act 1996 provided the same. But in 2002, in the case of Bhatia International versus Bulk Trading SA, the Supreme Court has taken a different view, which is not in consonance with Section 2, Clause 2 of the Arbitration Act. Now, here the main question was whether Section 9 of the Arbitration Act 1996. We know the Section 9 interim measures are being provided by the court when the parties during, before, or after approaches the court during the pendency of the arbitration proceedings approaches the court. Now, the question for which came up for consideration before the court was, if suppose the seat was not in India, whether the courts in India will have jurisdiction to pass an order under Section 9 of the Arbitration Act. This is the question which arose. Just we will see the facts of the case here. This procedural law, see, if you see, arbitration was as per the rules of International Chamber of Commerce. As I said, procedural rules was ICC rules here in this facts. Next, the respondent initiated arbitration proceedings at ICC Paris. So, see, procedural rules, and in essence, they have initiated arbitration proceedings, and seat was also in. There's no doubt, seat was also in Paris. What happened? But they initiated the proceedings there, but they filed a Section 9 application in India, asking for an injunction. Now, here if you see, once Paris has selected a seat of arbitration, any orders, whether it's interim or like challenge or anything, can happen only in the courts in Paris. But they file arbitration there, but interim order, they approach the Indian courts. So therefore, what happens? The appellant, so Bhatia, see, bulk trading is doing that. So appellant Bhatia raised the issue of maintainability, plea of maintainability of such an application on a ground stating that, see, part 1 will not be applicable because seat of arbitration is not in India. So part 1 of the said act will not apply for arbitrations. That is the plea of maintainability raised. But and the appellant also said the Section 2, Clause 2, as I pointed out, unless the international taking place in India, part 1 will not apply. These are the defense taken by the appellant. Now, Supreme Court says Indian, but deviating from Section 2, Clause 2, Supreme Court held Indian courts had jurisdiction to hear and decide the application filed under Section 9, even if the seat of arbitration was outside India. There was no dispute where was the seat. It was explicitly and impliedly in Paris only. There is no dispute at all. There was no arguments on that point at all. Even then, Supreme Court held in Bhatia's case, no, even if the seat was outside, Section 9 can be filed and courts have jurisdiction. Next, for justification, what the Supreme Court gave was, it said a proper and co-joined reading of all the provisions indicate that part 1 will apply also to international commercial arbitration, which takes place outside India. Unless the parties by agreement expressly or impliedly exclude. Unless there is a specific clause to that effect, part 1 will automatically apply even if the seat is outside India. This was the judgment which Bhatia International gave in 2002. Next came the famous landmark Balco judgment. That is Bharat Aluminium Company versus Kaiser Aluminium Technical Services. These are all landmark judgment relating to seat of arbitration. So I just thought I would just take 3-4 judgments and then try to explain the seat of arbitration. So that for getting a clear understanding. Now, what is Bharat Aluminium and Kaiser, shortly called Balco's case, Supreme Court overruled the judgment pronounced in by Supreme Court in Bhatia's case. Here what happened was, this particular issue, whether like when the seat of arbitration was outside India, whether the courts in India will have jurisdiction or not, this was referred to Constitution bench, five judges bench, and then it was decided. Now, just the facts, brief facts in Balco's case is where the arbitration clause in the agreement, any dispute under the agreement would be settled in accordance with English arbitration law. Here also, if you see, seat English arbitration law will apply, and the venue of proceedings would be London. So venue of proceedings London, but it's mentioned settled in accordance with English arbitration law. So seat is in London. The agreement further stated that governing law here, just to show that what we had a discussion about all three are coming here. So we were discussing about substantive law, procedural law, that is plural law, and seat of arbitration. So here if you see, seat of arbitration and procedural law is in London. Now the governing law with respect to agreement, that is the substantive law, was Indian law. However, arbitrative proceedings were to be governed and conducted in accordance with English law. Again, seat is in London. So it covers all the three aspects, the facts of the case. Now, in that award was passed by the tribunal in London, but it was challenged in India under Section 34 of the Arbitration Act, when it was crystal clear that seat was not in India and Part 1 will not be applicable. So these are the facts. Now we'll see what the Supreme Court held. Here, Supreme Court said it was held that there's a clear distinction between Part 1 and Part 2 as being applicable in completely different fields and with no overlapping provisions. Part 1 is completely different from Part 2. Next, the choice of another country as a seat of arbitration is very important, inevitably imports an acceptance that the law of that country relating to the conduct and supervision of arbitrations will apply to the proceedings. So, if some other country is a seat, so only the courts in that particular country will have jurisdiction, and not India. Next is, in a foreign seated international commercial arbitration, no application. Here it's a foreign seated because the seat is not in India. In a foreign seated international commercial arbitration, no application for interim relief would be maintainable under Section 9 or application under Section 34 or any other provision as applicability of Part 1 of the Arbitration Act is limited to all arbitration which takes place in India. So in Balco judgment, the judgment which was passed in Bharat Aluminium was overruled, and court held any provision of Part 1, it would be for interim order or challenge of award, any provision will apply only when seat of arbitration is in India, otherwise not. This is the proposition. This is the proposition, judgment part of the. In fact, there are other areas also which Balco dealt with, but I have filtered and taken the decisions relating to the seat of arbitration alone. There are other aspects also which have been dealt with. Yeah, it's a very big judgment. And interestingly, the one more aspect also, the Supreme Court clarified. This Supreme Court analyzed Section 20 of the Arbitration Act, and it clearly, although it's implied that place at seat, Supreme Court in Balco's judgment clarified that the term place used in Section 21 and 22 would connote seat, and the term place used in Section 20 Clause 3 would connote the term venue. So this aspect was also discussed, and the Supreme Court in Balco's case gave a clarity. Now next slide. Next, now interesting aspect is Balco judgment was passed in 2012, and it was also held that it had a prospective effect and no retrospective effect. Just 3 years after this Balco, the Arbitration and Conciliation Amendment 2015 amendment came into force. That, if you see, that that confirmed Bhatia's case, judgment pronounced in Bhatia's case by amending section 2 clause 2. That is, before 2015 amendment, the section 2 clause 2 was this one line. It stated, this part shall apply where the place of arbitration is in India. This was before 2015 amendment. Now after 2015 amendment, one more proviso was added. It says, this is just a replica of what was mentioned in Bhatia's case, not Balco. It says, provided that subject to an agreement to the contrary, there should be an express agreement to the contrary. Subject to an agreement to the contrary, the provisions of section 9, 27 and clause A of subsection 1 and subsection 3 of 37 shall also apply to international commercial arbitration. This is important. Even if the place of arbitration was outside India and an arbitral award made or to be made in such place is enforceable and recognized under the provisions of Part 2 of this Act. So, I don't know for what purpose this was amended, but after amendment, even if seat was not in India, parties court in Indian courts can hear petition under section 9 that we know interim measure. This section 27 talks about assistance of court for the time of taking evidence, and this 37 is an appeal provision, second appeal provision. So this it is restricted. These three, see, part 1 has more than 40 provisions. These three provisions alone will be applicable to international commercial arbitration, even if seat of arbitration is outside India. This was what the amendment stated. So the subsequent to the amendment, quietus was given to the issue whether the section 9 application can be filed or not. And so then now it is the present scenario is that even if seat of arbitration is not in India, the applications under these three provisions can be filed in India. Next. Fine. So now the concept of seat in relation to Indian Arbitration Act I discussed. Now, next aspect, just three judgments I just want to discuss and then stop there. Now, see, we also had a discussion. Seat has to be specifically and clearly mentioned in the arbitration clause. Suppose the term seat is not clearly mentioned, what would be the implications and what would be the consequences? That is I'm trying to explain. I'm through these judgments. Now, this is a English court judgment. In this case, what happened was the principal called Roger Sashua and others versus Mukesh Sharma. It is a landmark judgment which has been the principal. The principle which came out from this judgment is called Sashua principle to test the jurisdiction based on place or venue, and this principle was applied 2009 judgment. Balco came in 2012. This principle was applied in Balco, and this judgment was also confirmed and applied in Balco case. Just to state that even the Indian court is an English court, Indian court also followed this test as far as the cases which came before the Indian court. Here now, facts of the arbitration clause, if you see what was the issue here. Arbitration clause provided that agreement was to be governed by the laws of India. So, substantive law, laws of India. Next is, clause 14 says, an arbitration clause which provided for arbitration to be accordance with the rules of Conciliation and Arbitration Act of International Chamber of ICC, Paris. So, procedural law rules when the ICC rules. So, that is also clear. Next, provided for arbitration proceedings to be conducted in English language. The fourth is very important. The venue of arbitration shall be London, United Kingdom. We have mentioned the term venue, seat has not been mentioned. Second clause talks about procedural rules. That is internal procedure which has to be applied. ICC rules, Paris. Now, there is no reference to seat of arbitration here. This arbitration clause, as I again said, merely because seat of arbitration has not been used, several litigation, because here contract facts of the case in one line, if you see, like contract entered into between an English company and an Indian company for construction of a convention center in India. So some dispute arose and arbitration was initiated. See, when I went through the entire judgment, several litigations, interim applications before the Indian court, interim applications before English court, and litigations were going on like anything. I have only taken here the crux of the case. So just to say, see, only merely because the seat term has not been mentioned, there are lots of confusions in the case. Now, each party should be, okay, that is clause 14.51 is not much relevant. Now I will just, this is what English court held, and this is the exact wordings I have just quoted, and this is subsequently referred in Walco case, and this is called as Ashwa principle. What it is said here is, designation of the arbitration venue as London and no designation of any alternative place as the seat, combined with the supranational body of rules governing the arbitration and no other significant contrary indicia, the inexorable conclusion is to my mind that London is the juridical seat and English law the current law. This is what is the test to determine. So it says, even if venue is mentioned as London, combined with rules, this ICC rules have been mentioned, and no other significant. See, when you read it, arbitration clause have extracted, nothing, like significant to state anything about seat or deviate from, the venue, mentioning of venue, nothing has been stated. Venue alone has been mentioned. No other contradictory terminology or anything is available. In that case, conclusion, inexorable conclusion would be that London is the juridical seat and the English law is the current law. That is the procedural law. Therefore, Roger Shashua case, which has been followed subsequently by Indian courts, it held venue of to determine, since seat has not been mentioned, when court has to decide what would be the seat, then when venue has been clearly mentioned and our procedural rules have been mentioned, then no other disturbing circumstances, venue will also be the seat of arbitration. This is what the English court held in this Roger Shashua case. Subsequently, as I said, in Balco's judgment, other aspects I said been discussed in Balco's judgment. In that case, this exact words have been extracted, and court has also, in Balco's case, Supreme Court has held that if the term seat has not been used and venue has been used and no other circumstances exist, then venue is the seat of arbitration. Next comes, this is also a landmark judgment in India, taking a contradictory view stating that venue is not seat. This judgment is Union of India versus Hardy Exploration and Protection, INC, India. Here, so just one line I mentioned, dissented from Shashua principle and Balco judgment, said something, one interesting word, concomitant, has been used in Hardy, in this case, Hardy's case. Concomitant means naturally follows. I just link with the facts and then state. Along with, here it's settled, Hardy exploration, in this judgment has been mentioned, something concomitant along with expressly stated venue as criteria for determination of seat when not expressly stated, when seat has not been expressly mentioned. This is the crux of the judgment. Now again, I'll go to the facts of the case and explain that. Now the facts of the case here, the clause, if you see, the contract shall be governed and interpreted in accordance with laws of India against substantive law. So no dispute. Next, arbitration proceedings shall be conducted in accordance with UNCITRAL model law. Procedural rules. Again here, venue alone has been mentioned. Venue of conciliation or arbitration proceedings pursuant to this article, unless the parties otherwise agree, shall be Kuala Lumpur. So here, venue is Kuala Lumpur. Dispute arises between the party, arbitral tribunal in Kuala Lumpur, Here's a case and pass an award. Award is passed. What happens? Union of India challenges the award. Here, challenges the award under Section 34 of the Arbitration Act. In Indian court, Delhi court says part 1 would not apply because seat is not in India. So that 34 application filed is dismissed, challenging that Supreme Court is being approached by Union of India. What Supreme Court held is as follows. Firstly, it stated, arbitration clause must be read holistically to understand its intentions to determine the seat of arbitration. This is the first point decided. Next is important. Next, it stated, if the venue of arbitration alone is mentioned in the arbitration clause, it can be considered a seat of arbitration when, it is very important, only if other factors is added to it as concomitant. That is, naturally it should follow. So there in English court said, nothing, only venue, then automatic seat. Here it says, if venue has to be considered a seat, something should, like other than venue, something related to seat, some language or something should follow. Then only it can be considered a seat. If the intention of the arbitration clause through a choice of venue and appended facts lead to conclusion that seat is outside India, part 1 of the act will be excluded. So, if the seat is outside, part 1 excluded. This is what it's been mentioned. Since here it says the venue is not seat. Now, third part, it's even clearly mentioned why that award cannot be taken into consideration. Now, in this case, UNCITRAL model law is being applied. As per 21 of UNCITRAL model law, same provision in Indian Arbitration Act also. If the place of arbitration is not agreed between the parties, second clause of Indian Arbitration Act, the arbitral tribunal can determine the same. So, like suppose for venue or seat is not clear, arbitration tribunal should pass. It actually means it should pass a speaking order. Why it is construing venue as seat. Article 31 clause stipulates that the award shall state the date and the place of arbitration as determined in accordance with Article 21. In the present case, the Supreme Court noted that although the award was signed and declared in Kuala Lumpur, that the place and date of award, Kuala Lumpur, the arbitral tribunal had said. But there was no express determination of the place of arbitration by the arbitral tribunal. Therefore, the court opined that determination would require a positive act and express opinion. That means like there was no speaking order as to why arbitral tribunal construed. They were not taken any efforts to decide that seat means here venue means seat. Therefore, court held that in this particular case, venue will not constitute seat. Therefore, the Shashua principle was not applied here, and a different view has been taken by the court in Hardy's case. Next, now recent judgment 2019. This BGS SGS Soma versus NHPC Limited. In this case, again reaffirmed Balco's case, and again this Shashua principle has been reaffirmed. That means, but this is also 3-bench judgment, and Hardy is also 3-bench judgment. But Hardy, it has been held here that Hardy, the judgment in Hardy, this Hardy's case is not a good law. To that extent, they have held because it has to be referred to 5-judge bench only, because both are 3 judges bench. Now here, the Soma's case, what happened is, facts of the case here. This is actually interesting thing. Now see, till now I had been discussing about international commercial perspective, where parties are from India, 2 different countries. Here, one more aspect is also here, like it is domestic arbitration, where seat was in India and 2 Indian parties were involved. So this is an interesting case we can see. Here, facts of the cases: arbitration proceedings shall be held at New Delhi / Faridabad, India. That is the only thing mentioned. Arbitration proceedings at New Delhi or Faridabad, India, and the language of the proceedings all English. That is not much relevant. Next is dispute was handled. What happened? New Delhi or Faridabad. So arbitral tribunal at Delhi had conducted handled the arbitration proceedings. Arbitral award in favor of the claimant and mentioned New Delhi as a place of this award has been passed and New Delhi has been placed as the award of place of award. Then what happens? Respondent files NHPC files an application under 34 seeking for setting aside of the award before the court at Faridabad. So since the New Delhi or Faridabad had mentioned, maybe so they filed the application for setting aside before Faridabad. What happened? The SOMA files a transfer, in a sense, return of application stating that Faridabad will not have jurisdiction. Award has been passed in New Delhi. Seat is New Delhi, so just return the papers, and it has to be filed before New Delhi. Respondent they also got a favorable order stating that it has to be filed only before the court in New Delhi. Then this NHPC files appeal, second appeal bench under section 37 before Punjab and Haryana High Court. Faridabad was concluded to have jurisdiction as cause of action having arises in part in Faridabad. So when 37 that particular order was transfer order was challenged, that High Court held Faridabad is also having jurisdiction as part of cause of action as arisen. So that's what, and so they've allowed that petition. Now, in this petition is challenged before this order has been challenged before the Supreme Court. So now we'll see what Supreme Court has held. Here, the parties have chosen a seat would necessarily intend that the courts at the seat have exclusive jurisdiction over the entire arbitral process. Now here, New Delhi, Faridabad, no doubt, both the courts have been mentioned, but both the parties have submitted themselves to for the arbitration proceedings before the court tribunal at New Delhi, and till the completion of proceedings and award being passed, no issue has been raised, and both the parties have submitted themselves to the jurisdiction of the New Delhi, which means that they have considered New Delhi as a seat of arbitration. Next, Balco clearly and unmistakably state that choosing a seat amounts to choosing the exclusive jurisdiction of the courts at which a seat is located. That's implied. Once you select a seat, till then same courts of that particular seat will only prevail. Next, when a seat has been designated, the courts at the seat alone would have jurisdiction, and all further applications must be made in the same court by operation of Section 42 of the Arbitration Act. See, Section 42 of the Arbitration Act, I just read out. There's an interesting portion which says jurisdiction. It says any part of any eldorf or a timing in force with respect to an arbitration agreement, any application under this part has been made in a court, that court alone shall have jurisdiction over the arbitral proceedings, and all subsequent applications arise out of the agreement and the arbitral proceedings shall be made in that court and no other court. Once the proceedings initiated in the place of particular court, that particular court till the end, since exclusive jurisdiction clause will come, till the end only the application should be filed before that court. And even if second court has jurisdiction, it cannot be filed in that particular court. This is what Section 42 says, and that has been applied here. Then the Sashua principle of this English court has also been discussed in SOMA through the Balco case, because Balco case first applied the Sashua principle. Based on the Sashua principle, the expression here, although venue, here the term venue is not mentioned in the arbitration clause. They use arbitration proceedings. Arbitration proceedings shall be held at New Delhi, Faridabad. So now, instead of venue, that term is taken by the Supreme Court. It says the expression arbitration proceedings make it clear that the venue should be considered the seat of arbitration proceedings. As Ashua's principle, it said venue should be seat. So here, arbitration proceedings should be construed as a seat. The Supreme Court held that since all the arbitration proceedings were held in New Delhi and the final award was signed in New Delhi, the parties choose New Delhi and not Faridabad as a seat of arbitration under Section 20 of the Arbitration Act. Therefore, court held only Delhi had jurisdiction and any challenge can be made only before the Delhi courts. This is what is decided in SOMA case. So therefore, conclusion. See, after discussing these judgments, the conclusion which I would like to arrive is here only mistake what the parties made was they had not mentioned the seat. They have not specifically from the beginning. I had been on and off. I had been mentioning this. They have not mentioned the term seat in their arbitration clause. So consequence, just it has resulted in several litigations. See, even in this, if 3-4 applications have been filed, it has resulted only in litigations, which defeats the purpose of arbitration. Now, on this date, if you see in India, Hardy's case is there, which says when you cannot be seat. Soma case 2019 says when you can be seat. But again, both are 3-judge bench judgments. So, there is no clarity, and still, this issue will crop up to litigations. Next slide is the last slide. So, finally, I would like to conclude. Party autonomy is the cornerstone, as I said. Party autonomy is the cornerstone for arbitration, and arbitration clause is the cornerstone. This cornerstone for the parties to the arbitration. That's what I would say, because at the time of entering into contract itself, arbitration clause has to be very seriously and meticulously drafted. If it is done, then at least to some extent litigations can be avoided. So I just thought I'll briefly state what are the important aspects that should be covered in the arbitration clause. It should state all are part of the contract to be adjudicated to, which are all the part of contract to be adjudicated to arbitration, selection of arbitration tribunal, substantive law applicable, international commercial arbitration perspective, which is taken, substantive law which is applicable. Next, procedural rules to be followed. Which procedural rules to be followed? Next is very important, seat of arbitration, venue of arbitration, and language to be used. Therefore, I would conclude by stating that seat of arbitration would play a very vital role, and unless that is selected properly, the purpose of arbitration would not be achieved. Thank you. Slide.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for planning us on the topic. It was very informative. We'll be able to put the use in our legal practice as well. And I'm sure participants will benefit if you could share the PPT also with us. I think
sure.
If possible, we could take a couple of questions from the participants, ma'am. No?
Yes, sure, ma. Sure.
Yes. Participants can type in your questions in the chat, and we'll ask you to unmute and ask your questions to ma'am directly. I think there was a question already before itself typed by Ramalingam. Okay. In the event of parties merely mentioning venue of arbitration and not seat, what will be the law governing the arbitration where both the parties are foreigners to the venue?
But seat is in India. Both the parties are? No, I cannot understand. Just
in the event of parties merely mentioning venue of arbitration and not seat, what will be the law governing the arbitration where both the parties are foreigners to the venue?
See, that aspect has to be determined by the arbitration tribunal. See, the provision is there. Now, see, suppose both the parties are outside, maybe the UNCITRAL model rules if they are going to apply. See, they have to apply a procedural rule, right? So, if seat is not there and only venue is mentioned, and if the parties have not decided, that clause 2 will apply, and they will have to, arbitration tribunal has to determine, even if they are foreign parties.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. I think that answers the question. A follow-up question from Raman. What will be the role of pre-arbitration applications in such cases?
Pre-arbitration, I think, is mentioning section, meaning section interim order.
Yes, ma'am. So, as you mentioned, the arbitral tribunal will be deciding on the matter. What about pre-arbitration applications like such?
See, again, they will have to test waters only. See, here also, when you then they file, they will have to select one jurisdiction and file. And again, that may be challenged by the opposite side saying venue is not this and that, and like testing waters only.
Okay. Yes.
If seat is not clearly mentioned, that leads to litigations.
Madam, let us end here. we will end here. Let us congratulate her for thorough preparation. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, so thank you, ma'am, and it has been delight listening to you speak on the topic.
Yes.
Once again, on behalf of everyone, I'd like to thank you for your time and talking us on the subject. Yes. And I'd also like to thank our president, Dr. Paul Chalakumar, for giving us the opportunity. And last week itself, sir also mooted about another webinar series or educative series, which shows his keen interest in this. And we look forward to it also.
Yeah, in the meanwhile, I've been learning. That in the process, I've been also learning, so I enjoy it. So we look forward and we thank every participant. Let us have more participants next time. I congratulate Mrs. Rajani for the efforts she has taken. I wish every one of you all the best. We look forward to seeing you in the near future, most probably next Saturday. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.